All right, this second half of the program, I will be looking at diversifying our forex reserves. That's our foreign exchange reserves. We did tell you, or I told you, was it on Monday or so, the governor of the central bank presented a made in Nigeria 12.5 kg gold to the president, and a check of 268 million naira was paid to the presidential artisanal gold miners. Yes, there is an initiative. I'll be speaking more of that when when my guests join me. Tokunbo Afikuyomi Jr., who is the editor-in-chief at Stears Business, is also an economist. But let's quickly take this track up from the governor of the central bank when he presented the gold bar to the president. Take a listen.
For several years, I would say decades, we've been talking about the need to diversify the revenue base of the Nigerian economy. I would say that today, this has been actualized. Actualized in the sense that other than receiving dollar revenues from proceeds of sale of crude oil, we have today received into our reserves through the purchase of this 12.5 kilogram LBMA gold bar into our reserve. We have today received gold into our reserves. Like you all know, gold is valued in the international markets in dollars. So what does that mean? This gold is valued at some dollars, some that will go into our reserve. And what does that also mean? That for those who feel that Nigeria, the only way they analyze Nigeria is to say, oh, what is the price of crude? Is the price of crude high or is the price of crude low? They will now begin to see that at this time when the price of crude is low and the price of gold is rising, that the Nigerian economy remains strong, Nigerian economy remains resilient to withstand the exogenous shock that we see around us today. So we see this opportunity to assure our friends, both locally and internationally, to say that the Nigerian government, supported by the monetary and the fiscal authorities, are doing everything possible to diversify the base of the Nigerian economy. And in the coming weeks and months, Nigerians and the world will see more that is going to be done, improving the output from agricultural sector, improving productivity from the manufacturing sector, doing everything to make it easy for food to move from farm to land to market.
All right, welcome back. In case you're just joining us, it's time for the second interview. Tokunbo Afikuyomi Jr. is joining me right now via Skype from Lagos. He's the editor-in-chief, Stears Business, as well as an economist. Hello, Tokunbo. Good to see you.
Hi, Nancy. Hope you're doing well in Abuja.
I'm doing well in Abuja. Tokunbo, I almost did not recognize you. What's happening? Is it the lockdown? I almost did not recognize you, really.
Lockdown.
This is lockdown effect.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep safe.
Yes, I think we need to do an analysis. But whether Stears Business needs to look into that, an analysis of the social well-being of people, you know, during this lockdown to this period that we're gradually reopening. But good to have you, Tokunbo. I don't know if you saw the clip by the central bank governor, of course, when he presented the 12.5 kg, that's kilogram gold bar, to the president. Let's give a bit of background to our viewers. The PAGMI, let me call it it's too long, Presidential Artisanal Gold Miners Initiative, launched in 2019 to formalize the local market, get gold locally, and also pay them for that gold in international price. Tokunbo, just speak to me about perhaps this initiative and what you think about this. Is it really how it looks?
Yeah, good question. So, well, what the central bank is trying to do, and you saw it in that clip there, is trying to convince international investors, you know, local investors as well, that the Nigerian economy is now a lot more diversified. And so the central bank has added gold as part of its foreign reserves. But I guess you asked the question of is it as it seems? There are a few things to pick up there. The first thing is that all central banks in the world normally hold gold in their foreign reserves, and Nigeria already has some gold in its reserves. At the moment, only around 3% of their total foreign holdings. And the gold that was purchased recently comes to around $700,000. And the CBN has total reserves of around 36 billion at the moment. So it is starting small, but there are still a few nuances to understand because the gold that is being produced in Nigeria, for example, still gets refined outside of Nigeria. I think in this case, probably was done in Turkey. So there's still some room to go in terms of actually convincing the world that gold has become a genuine source of income for Nigeria. And then there's also that issue of making sure that the gold being produced, doesn't always have to be refined outside of the country as well, because Nigeria currently does not have the ability to refine this gold. So similar problem with the oil situation all over again.
Hello YouTubers, welcome to Moneyline with Nancy TV YouTube channel. This is where we provide you with instructive business directions, processes, and guidance to help you assess the right resources to fund your businesses to withstand every form of internal and external shock. You will find here awesome informative videos on business, entrepreneurship, and lifestyle just to help you make informed business and financial decisions. Punch the subscribe button and let us drive you through the world of business. Please follow all our social media platforms on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and follow us for latest updates on our website. So is it a step in the right direction that the government perhaps wants to establish a gold refinery or a gold mine? Yes, I can call it a refinery, actually, or a gold mine, here in Nigeria. I do know that I think Ghana is the largest producer of gold on the African continent, if I'm not mistaken. I think Ghana's followed by South Africa. So how much of potential do we have there?
So yeah, no, there is potential, and currently the market is very informal. So you have many little artisans, mining gold here and there, and it's similar to how oil has made us in the past ignore other sectors like agriculture and the rest. And so the government is slowly coming back to remembering those resources that we have on ground in Nigeria. And so there is potential for gold. I guess going back to the perspective of the CBN though, in terms of diversifying your foreign exchange reserves, gold has its pros and cons. The CBN governor mentioned that gold is priced internationally and the price is currently going up. That is not always the situation. I think around 2012, gold lost 40% of its value. So gold prices is not necessarily the case that gold keeps its value at a constant rate. Gold prices, like any other commodity, rise and fall. Another thing to note is that most central banks keep their reserves by buying mostly U.S. government bonds. The idea is to make sure that you have liquid foreign reserves that can be quickly changed into cash and sold and keeping its value. Gold to some extent can do that, but then there is a risk that gold prices fluctuate the same way oil prices do. Not as volatile.
Yes, but if you're taking a look at the volatility, Tokunbo, which would you rather prefer? Today, this morning, just before I came, yes, you know where I'm going to. Before I came into the studio, gold, an ounce of gold is trading for about $18.50 US. That's 1,850 US dollars. Brent crude is doing around 43 US dollars. The best is done, I think, this week, or 44 US dollars. The best is done at least in the past few days. Though we've seen oil trading at an historic high, at least I think in the last 2 weeks. It traded high yesterday because of the EU leaders' recovery deal and all of that. But which would you rather take? Which is more risky? Because if you take a look at even gold, gold is an hedge over inflation. Gold is also an edge against even the US dollar because they have that kind of inverse relationship.
Yeah. No, certainly, gold is one of the, they call it a safe haven asset where when times are rough, so at the point of time when you actually need more funds, that asset tends to increase in value. And so there is that safety for sure. But I think the thing to note about which do I prefer is I prefer all of them. The case, Nigeria, the story is not that we should find another replacement for oil. The story is that we need to diversify so that the day when oil prices are dropping, there's something else to rely on. And when gold prices, for example, like I said, the way they dropped back in 2014 drop, there's something else that can keep the economy, still running. So yes, gold has that advantage of, like you said, keeping its value, during times of crisis. But we must make sure that at the end of the day, the idea and the goal here is to have a diversified economy that does not depend on any one commodity. And that's the same situation that the CBN needs to have in terms of its foreign exchange. Because right now it's very reliant on oil prices. Whenever oil prices drop, CBN is in trouble because it's getting less dollars into its vault, and all of a sudden there's a struggle to keep that exchange rate of 381 naira to the dollar. And so we just need to find a way to make our economy more diversified, or specifically to make our dollar earnings, like exchange earnings, more diversified.
I like the way you put it. It's not a matter of preferring just a replacement. It's a matter of bringing so many things to the table. So whenever there's a shock as this, an external shock will be in a better position. If you take a look at our foreign exchange reserves, at about $36 billion right now. The CBN governor also did say earlier that we've not yet taken a dollar out of the 3.4 billion IMF financing. I'm surprised to hear that, but if you take a look at our forex reserves, how healthy do you think it is? And of course, well, what is the component of this foreign exchange reserves? Perhaps basic economics 101.
Yeah, so in terms of the health, so what the CBN is doing is quite, I guess, dicey. They are essentially controlling the markets and making sure that they are in a position to make sure they're not spending as much dollars as they need to. So there are stories around how currently there's a backlog of a couple of $1 billion that foreign investors are asking for, but the CBN is not providing. And as well, if you think of the stories we've heard in the banking sector in the last few months, actually, the CBN, right before it does its dollar sales, would normally go to the commercial banks and require them to keep more of their naira at the CBN vaults. That means that they are less able to request for dollars because more of their naira is being kept at the CBN. And so the CBN is kind of manipulating the market to ensure that it's spending as little as its reserves as possible. In the event that everyone needs, in the event that the CBN does pay on demand, then the reserve position will look a lot less healthy than they currently do. And in terms of its composition, as you asked, like I said, most of it is held in government bonds, US government bonds. There are other assets as well. There was the, back in 2016, I don't know if you remember the Chinese swap that we did. Yes, the
Chinese swap, yes.
$2 billion. So that makes sense in terms of diversification because a lot of higher, and it makes sense to just swap the naira for the Chinese yuan via the CBN, and then you also have a situation where a lot of the dollars that has come into the country was used to buy CBN government instruments, CBN debt instruments such as automobiles. And so in the event that investors want to leave the country and sell those automobiles, the CBN has to provide those dollars back again. And so that's another position that we need to also keep an eye on.
How much of diversification should come into foreign exchange? Because it's not just only about holding reserves in a foreign currency. Most of the reserves perhaps around the world is held in the US dollar, the reserve currency. It's called the hard currency because a lot of investors, people have faith and they have trust in the economy. For example, the US. If you take a look at, I think China is the country with the largest gold reserves, for example, and I think the country with the largest foreign exchange reserves, if I'm not mistaken. How much sense is it in diversifying official FX reserves? Official is also different from foreign exchange reserves. It's like I'm in an economic class 101 now. Tokunbo, you understand what I'm trying to say? Yes.
Yes.
So how much of it, because some other countries are also mulling the fact that we want to put less dependence on the USD. Why can't we also go for the Chinese yuan, the Russian ruble, and some other international currencies?
Yeah, it's a very good question. And the answer is, what does the economy or what do investors want? What currency are they requiring? So if, for example, Nigeria was Nigerian imports were, 100% from China, then there is an argument for ensuring that our reserves are in that currency. But because a lot of the foreign investment that comes into Nigeria comes in dollars, that is what the CBN needs to have in terms of making sure that the market is balanced in terms of its dollar demand and dollar supply. Around the world, though, most countries still save their foreign exchange reserves in dollars. But depending on which country they do the most trade with, that would then signify other currencies that they should have as well. There are other assets like the IMF has an SDR,
As they
where
are.
it's essentially, yes, essentially an instrument that can be exchanged for any currency under the IMF. So that's another option as well. But for now, there isn't, because of how liquid US government bonds are, and by liquid, I mean they're so easily tradable. You can easily change them straight into cash. Because of that advantage, most central banks, including the Nigerian central bank, still prefer to keep their money in US government bonds. Because at the end of the day, reserves are only used to, for example, mostly to help your economy imports. If you want to import anything from around the world, you most of the time need dollars. And so you need to be able to supply those dollars to your importers. And also you want the markets to feel confident that you have dollars and you have liquid dollars to supply. And so that confidence comes from the kind of assets you hold. If you hold US government bond assets in dollars, then the market is more likely to believe that you're in a healthy position.
Tokunbo, how would you assess the government's initiative, this presidential artisanal gold mining initiative, which was launched last year, bringing in the artisanal miners? Of course, the local miners, we saw a lot of smuggling going into that. The FG and the CBN is coming together into partnership. I must also say there is a Canadian company, I think Tor Exploration Limited, that is also working with the government in terms of putting this together. With this initiative, do you think that gold mining or gold contribution, no, mining contribution now to the GDP would increase? Because mining contribution to GDP is around 0.1%, very low, unlike what we saw even in the 70s, 5 to 6%. Instead of us to be moving higher, we are lower. So do you think that this initiative is a good one that also should be encouraged by Nigerians? That's the A part of the question. The B part of the question is, what does it do to, how does it affect an individual? For example, if I have my gold, how does it affect me? Of course, a lot of women have gold too.
Yeah, no, it's a very good question. So I guess the first thing is that with the mining situation, the gold mining situation, the market is currently very informal, and the artisans currently face quite a lot of struggles. There's a lot of smuggling happening in the sector, and also they have complained about not being paid fair prices when they are facing the international markets. And so that's one of the things that the CBN and the federal government is coming into to deal with. So the CBN pays the artisans a fair price for their gold, and they are not, cheated when they are trying to deal on an international basis. In terms of what it would do for contribution, well, I think the way to look at it is that, the Nigerian government has said they want it to go to 3% of GDP. I always rethink it whenever people talk to me about contribution to GDP, because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter that it's 0.3 or 3%. What you want is an economy that's growing and diversified. Is it really a bad thing if something like ICT, other services, are now taking more of the economic pie, so that, gold, even if mining is still doing strong, if ICT and other, services industries are growing very well and taking 99% of the economy, for example, and gold is only able to take 1%, is that necessarily a bad thing than, versus 3%? So looking at contribution is not quite the right way to think about it, but more so how much it does for jobs and actual income that's going to be earned. And the Nigerian government has quite a few, I guess, bold promises that it seems to want to get in terms of jobs and income that's earned. I think something around $500 million that get annually from that. And so if that's going to be possible, then certainly that would be great. But also you need to make sure that as they're developing the sector, other things that are needed, including refining, is also done, is also thought about in Nigeria. Otherwise, like I said, they're going to have to export the gold outside to be refined, either in a refinery in South Africa or anywhere else around the world, and then bring back the refined gold, which is what we face with oil. So to try and avoid that same situation again, having a proper oil refinery that meets the standards is something that they also need to consider.
Are you encouraged with the gold mine perhaps that will take off in Osun State come 2021 that will be producing, I think, about 80,000 ounces of gold per year? That's one. Of course, like I said, I think the U.S. is the country with the largest gold reserves. But China produces the most of gold, I think, for the world, if I'm not mistaken. Ghana in Africa and South Africa. So are you encouraged with that gold mine? And you said something which is also very fundamental. It's not about producing gold, just like, and we export, like we're seeing in oil, and we bring back refined products, which some reports have even said that the oil that we're bringing back from, especially from Europe, is dirtier than the one that our boys in the creeks produce. So are you encouraged by that? We should learn from oil, isn't it? Or have we even learned sufficient lessons?
Certainly we should learn from oil. Fortunately, in this situation with gold, the refined oil received is at a certain standard and has to be at a certain standard. Otherwise, it will not be accepted by Nigeria. So thankfully, we might not get that situation on the gold side, because the whole point of exporting it is to get it at that standard. Otherwise, we'll just refine it any way we can here. So hopefully, we don't see that a similar Guardian story about dirty gold. But in terms of Osun State is the most promising area in terms of getting gold up to speed. And the thing at the end of the day is that it will be great for the state and it will be great for income for Nigeria. But no one country has ever put their hand up to say we are a fast-growing or fundamental economy, well-growing economy because of the gold that we produce. Right? It's not going to be the panacea of Nigeria's problems. It's good for diversification, and that's as far as it would go. But definitely in terms of building jobs in the mining sector, because the thing about unemployment in Nigeria is there are people who have skills of the past that have essentially been forgotten because we have moved on to other sectors, like banking and finance, for example, and we've left behind many people who we haven't retrained, right? To say, okay, you used to do mining back in the past, now come and work in a bank. We haven't done that. And so that's why you see these, massive numbers in terms of unemployment. The vice president mentioned, we might hit 40 or 39 million this year. And so in terms of, creating jobs that suit the skills of individuals in the country, that's another benefit that we should have in terms of mining.
Well said, Tokunbo. Well said. So many things to bring out from this topic. We may look at it again sometime and see how we can really diversify our foreign exchange earnings. Thank you very much, Tokunbo, for joining me on the show today. All right. I've been speaking with Tokunbo Afikuyomi Jr., who is the editor-in-chief at Stears Business. He's also an economist. Thank you for watching our video. Please hit the subscribe button below, turn on post notification to follow all our updates.